And there are three general strategies with this. This part isn't really rocket science, but we could list the property for less than what we think it's worth. We could list it for more than what we think it's worth, or we could list it for exactly what we think it's worth.
You found the Real Estate Law Podcast, because real estate is more than just pretty pictures, and law goes well beyond the paperwork and courtroom arguments. If you're a real estate professional or looking to build real estate expertise, then welcome to the conversation and discover more at realestatelawpodcast.com.
Welcome to the Real Estate Law Podcast. My name is Jason Muth, and we're here with real estate attorney, real estate broker, owner of NextHome Titletown Real Estate here in Boston, Rory Gill. Hey, Rory.
Hi, Jason. I missed you.
Yes, exactly. I feel like we just recorded one of these.
I feel like so too.
Camera.
I didn't even do a wardrobe change, but we'll.
You didn't, but you're all dressed up today. I mean, some people are listening to this through iTunes or whatever podcast platform they prefer. Some people are watching this on YouTube because we're now recording video versions of it. And you're decked out in a suit and tie today, which is very atypical for post-COVID work couture.
Right. So, I mean,
30, right?
Well, as we get back to normal, we have to start dressing like normal again. So, we can't do everything in sweatpants.
I feel like that's going to be a whole nother topic as well, though. Like, I mean, I think that we've gone, beyond the Brooks Brothers suits or Hugo Boss or whatnot. I mean, yeah, people want to get dressed to the nines, but I think it's going to be a lot more business casual than we even expect. That's
probably true. This is probably death now for formal shoe wear. You don't see anybody's shoes anymore. So, I don't know, market advice.
Orange shoes, the orange soled shoes.
I am, yes.
You have those on today? All right.
Yes. I mean, I could not be, and I'm lying, but I am wearing those right now.
Those are spiffy. All right. We just actually had an episode about determining the home value if you're about to list a property. And, it was a good conversation just talking about, how you as a broker determines a price using comparative market analysis, actually using the Zestimate or you saying, don't ignore it, even though you look at it at the very, very end. We talked about, what comps to look at, the 12 property method with 6 sold and what is it, 3 on the market.
3 expired or canceled.
3 expired or canceled. Okay. All right. So let's say we've gotten to the point that you have a price recommendation, a target price for your client. That's not necessarily the price at which you're going to list the property. Is that true?
Not necessarily. So now we've gone through the analysis. We've done a good job. We've determined what the market value of the property is. Now today's conversation is what exactly we're going to do with it. And there are 3 general strategies with this. This part isn't really rocket science, but we could list the property for less than what we think it's worth. We could list it for more than what we think it's worth, or we could list it for exactly what we think it's worth. In the 3 different situations, you have 3 very different outcomes. There are pros and cons to each, and that's what we're here to go through today.
Okay, so let's put some numbers behind it just to make it tangible. I think very numerically, let's use $500,000 as the number that you think a property is worth. Okay, it doesn't matter the type, right? We'll call it an urban property, right? So in a city environment, in a neighborhood that people has an average level of interest, or how do you want to position that?
Let's just call this an average condo unit in an average neighborhood. This is
okay.
This is just your average place, and luckily the math worked out evenly, and it's $500,000 is the market value of the home.
Okay, 500K. There we go. All right.
So we'll use that going through.
Good. So where do you want to start? What would the situation be where you want to go low, on the dot, or high?
So let's talk about the strategies and the pros and the cons of listing a property below market value. And there are many. So, if we listed it for, not $499, because $499 is $500, but let's say we listed it for $480 and we went below what we think the market value is. Well, that's the advantage of that strategy is you're likely to generate a lot more interest. You'll have a higher number of people coming to the open house, a lot more excitement of to see the home, and you're more likely to trigger a bidding war among your buyers. So there's a reason to list a little bit below what we think the property is worth. And that works in hand with the strategy of driving all the interest through the property around the same time. So you'll see this commonly in this market now where people are listing for a little bit under what they think the property is going to sell for. They are withholding all showings until the first round of open houses, having an exorbitant number of people come through that first weekend. And now they have a bidding war on Monday or Tuesday that they're sorting through. That's the advantage of that strategy. That works in a mild seller's market. Is probably the best time to adopt something like that. But there are downsides to that too. The first of which is you're going to have a ton of people come through your home. In this environment, we're kind of hopefully it's the tail end of COVID, but adopting this strategy in the midst of COVID means you're going to have a ton of people coming through your home. For a lot of sellers, that may be off-putting. Yeah, and it may just be a lot, even in regular times, to have a huge audience of people come through your home. Many people aren't comfortable with that. And you're going to have a lot of tire kickers and a lot of people that aren't incredibly serious with it. And then, of course, there's a big downside risk is you're going to get what you ask for. And to get a property that's you're going to get offers that are worth less because you valued it for less. So that's a downside risk to it there. And then the converse strategy is listing it a bit too high. This is my least favorite strategy. This is not something that I would encourage anybody to do. But the advantages of listing high, you may get what you ask for. You may set the expectations for a few buyers that are going to come through and take a look at it. You also might constrict the actual showings of people who come through to serious buyers, to those who are really particularly interested in that property, and you're not going to get the traffic that, depending on your situation, you may not want. And it also may work for sellers who are just not motivated sellers. So depending on the situation, if they don't need to sell, but they want to see what's out there, maybe they do want to constrict traffic and interest to those who are at the price point that would actually get them to move out. So there are some advantages there. The big downside to it is that you're not going to get that traffic. So for most sellers, not having that attention, not generating that interest is going to be fatal to them getting a quick sale of the property. And because you have most eyes on a listing, normally I say the first 14 days that it's live, but really the first 7 now that it's live. So testing out the market at high price point and reducing it later, that's in the market that's been the past few years and the market that I project in the next coming year, that's just a bad strategy because you're likely to leave a lot of people behind. And when you reduce the price, you're left with a lot of people wondering what's wrong with it because most correctly priced properties sell quickly. So it's not a good strategy just to put things out and then just see how it goes.
Yeah. I've seen a couple properties lately that they've been reduced 2 or 3 times. And as someone that is looking at it saying, maybe I should buy this or not, it feels not only that there's something wrong with the property, but I feel like there's something wrong with the seller. Like this is going to be a difficult person to work with if they set their price, again, using the $500,000 example. Let's say they set it at $579 and then they lowered it to $569. Then they lowered it to $549 and they haven't gotten any takers. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll look at it and now I'm going to lowball it. Now I'm going to put in an offer really low and they're probably going to get even more annoyed with me. But, part of me says, well, geez, this person had such false expectations with this property. How are they going to be to try to negotiate when I'm worried about not just the price, but, what the inspection turns up and any concessions I might have to get?
And that's an interesting point. I may go back and try to quantify that later on, but when I've looked at properties that have been listed for a while and you go back and you see the market history, often there is a quirk that correlates to that. Sometimes the listing agent might be the seller themselves and they've never listed anything else before and have no market history. So that's what's enabling that listing to go up there. They've not sought outside professional help. Or you might have an entry-only situation where they hired a listing broker, but only to put the listing up, but not to provide any other service or advice. I have seen quite a few of that. before I say that that's what's exactly out there, I should probably take a look and quantify it. But you're right. There people are wondering what is wrong with the property. Is there a legal problem with the property? Is there a physical problem with the property? Is there a personality problem with the property? Those are all things that are red flags for people. And for most buyers, they're just going to turn their attention to what's new in the market because those are the promising properties to them, the new and exciting ones. The one that's been listed for 21 days and has 2 price reductions, that's a red flag, certainly in this market for places.
You just mentioned something that I'm going to take it as a tangent, but a entry only agent. Can you define that? Because I want to tell my little story about that too.
Sure. So it's not my place as a brokerage to criticize other brokerages. So there's a disclaimer
I'll
there.
criticize it.
Well, let's relax. But an entry only office is an office that gets paid usually a flat fee to be an order taker for the seller, and they just use their MLS account, put the information in there. So now they have an MLS listing, but they're providing no other service. The listing agent is not coordinating showings. They're not handling any negotiations. They're not providing any advice to the seller. You, as a buyer or buyer's rep, you have to deal directly with the seller at their AOL.com email address and try to figure it out.
I'll offer my opinion of the situation where I encountered a entry-only agent, and that's, if you are an entry-only agent and you're listening to this, I advise that if you're going to take an entry for a listing and pocket your flat fee, you should make sure that your client has the right to use the photos that they're supplying to you, because if they don't, you can get into a copyright infringement issue. And I certainly didn't push the buttons, but I sent a sternly worded email when there was a photo that I took, and by taking it, I own the copyright, that I discovered on a listing. And I said, you don't own that photo. I own that photo. And I just want you to take it down. The response was the seller said that, we could use these photos. We just, entered the listing. And I'm thinking, you have a responsibility to understand that what you're, representing is accurate. So on we went from there. And, I won't put you in a legal bind to make a comment on that, but me as the copyright owner of that photo, I just basically said, take it down.
Yeah.
Totally separate conversation.
That's fair. Maybe we'll talk about.
This is real estate law, right? That's what the subject of this podcast is. So, sometimes we'll talk more about real estate. Sometimes we'll talk about law, and a little copyright law. That won't hurt us either, will it?
We'll find out when we get the cease and desist.
Jeez. Yeah. So back to the task at hand. So we talked about high, all the issues with listing it too high. This market these days, more people are deferring to, listing it for the price it's worth or a little low because they want to, just really stoke the flames of a buyer's war, right?
Sure. So we've talked about like pricing low and pricing high. What's left is pricing on or about exactly what the property's worth. And that is my advice for people. And I expect that to be my advice going forward this year. Because you have a bit of a seller's market. You don't need the artificial interest in pricing low. You don't need to generate that extra hype that you would in a more of a stagnant market. You can list for what it's worth, get the correct amount of interest through the property. If you still follow the right marketing strategy, you're likely to have a bidder's war, but perhaps a few less offers, but you'll be selling for more what you need. And why that's better than just listing low in this market. We see a lot of agents right now who are listing properties and bragging that they sold it for $50,000 over list price.
Yes.
That feels good when that happens to your listing. But what that tells me is that you listed it too low, that you didn't value the property quickly and you had a pleasant surprise on the backside. Now, sure, there's credit to be earned if you had a brilliant marketing effort to end up fetching that price afterward. You're certainly better than had you overpriced the listing and tried to work backward from there. But if you're fetching way more than the list price consistently, then perhaps you're not listing the property where it should be. As
a potential buyer, could I just add a comment about agents that do that? Like, honestly, there's a little bit of like, get off your high horse, like as someone that's looking for properties. And everyone's always looking for properties, but you almost feel as though the fact that right now we're in, a huge seller's market, that the agents like internalize that and it empowers them and they become superheroes when you're communicating with them. Like, be nice to people that you're accepting offers from. Like, it's a business transaction. Your reputation, is at stake here. Like, don't be, a D-bag or something that basically says, we hold all the cards, we have the power. That's not how you want to operate. You don't want that reputation from the people whose offer is not accepted, because that's happening more and more these days. If you're going to submit an offer on a property, it's more likely you're not going to get it. There's more likely going to have more offers on that same property. So you kind of want to leave the people that didn't buy that or didn't get it with a good taste in their mouth with you as the seller's agent. And that does not always happen. And, if you are listening to this and you're selling in this environment, like, there's a lot of ego in real estate. Like, get over yourself. Really, just a little bit, get over yourself. And this is what's good about having the two of us on this podcast. I could say this stuff because I'm not an agent, I'm not an attorney. I'm someone that's an investor, and I'm someone that's like in the market, looking to buy properties. But you leave that feeling saying, I'm not going to buy a property from this person again. Like, they become, mentally it's difficult to work with. So yeah, I mean, if you hold the cards as an agent and you have a property that's in high demand, like, be really respectful to the people that are bidding on that property, and, don't lie.
And it blows my mind that agents behave in that way, because one of the ancillary benefits of having a property that had a ton of interest is that you have a chance to build a professional relationship with the buyer's agent that have come through, or even pick up new clients with the buyers that came through if they're impressed with your professionalism. The more opportunities you have to interact and do business with somebody, the more relationships you're going to have, and the stronger your business is going to be in the longer term. And it's such a wasted opportunity to treat people that way. And not every agent's doing that, but you're right. There's a bit of an ego involved in patting themselves on the back when you have such a tailwind in this market as a listing agent. Want to know what you did well and what you did poorly, and with just good data propping you up, it's hard to really diagnose exactly how well you've done. Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Not to go on diatribes or whatnot, but, I think that respect, even in a market like this, is super important. And, I couldn't imagine if one of your agents did that.
No, and, you're likely to be buyer's agent at another point, and the market is going to turn, maybe not this year, but some other time. And the more connections, the strong, the more trust you build in the market with your competitors, the better you're going to be able to serve your clients.
Right. Excellent. Well, great advice once again, Rory. So if people have questions about pricing strategies, if they think that they were done wrong by their agent, if they are about to enter the market, they don't know where to start, how can they get a hold of you?
NextHome, Titletown, realestate.com. We have a couple of tools on the site to give you a preliminary estimate, but as we discussed, come talk to us. We'll not only come up with a good valuation for you, but the right marketing strategy for your home.
Right on. Cool. All right. Well, good. Thanks again, Rory. We really appreciate it. So once again, this has been the Real Estate Law Podcast. My name is Jason Muth. This is Rory Gill with NextHome Titletown Real Estate here in Boston. And we're so glad that you listened, and we're looking forward to talking to you next time. Thank you.
Great. We'll see you next time.
This has been the Real Estate Law Podcast, because real estate is more than just pretty pictures, and law goes well beyond the paperwork and courtroom arguments. We're powered by NextHome Titletown, Greater Boston's progressive real estate brokerage. More at nexthometitletown.com. And UrbanVillage Legal, Massachusetts Real Estate Council, serving savvy property owners, lenders, and investors. More at urbanvillagelegal.com. Today's conversation was not legal advice, but we hope you found it entertaining and informative. Discover more at realestatelawpodcast.com. Thank you for listening.